Hello everyone, this is Bentley, and I'm a fan of the Seattle Seahawks, if that's not obvious by that hat. And the Seattle Seahawks, this big thing around the number 12. That number is retired for its fans, the 12th man. And so I think it's only fitting that on episode 12 of Tank of the Week, we talk about, well, a bluefish. It's time for Tank of the Week, my friends, and you've waited long enough. Let's check out the Guppy Mansion in all its glory. So here we are, we're going to pan across the tank real quick. You have to forgive me, I'm trying to handhold this, so it's a little shakier than usual. That's my apologies. The problem is the tank is just so large. It's hard to do this on a tripod without a ton of cuts, and I kind of want to do this one a little uncut this time. So the far right-hand side of the tank, we have all this like beautiful Java Fern Wendelov. There is a little bit of Trident mixed in. You have to kind of go hunting for it. But if I were to take you here, you would see it right on the far right edge over here. You can see that little bit of Trident in there. And then most of the rest of it is Wendelov. And this was all originally on some cholla wood. And then you have a couple of pretty rare crypts right here. So to the right, the one dead center of the screen right now, this is Crypt Nurii Pahang mutated. You can see that bright yellow stripe up the middle. And then to its left is a more standard Nurii. These are the most beautiful guppies. The color shows so much better on this camera compared to my old phone. So you can see back there's a big field of crypts. They're just kind of a standard Wendelii. I guess Tropica is probably the closest. They're like red-brown. It's all kind of a mixture. Nothing too special. You can actually see more of them in the front if we kind of come over this way. Same crypt, but if you see these tiny green crypts down here, those are Petchai pinks that are slowly growing in. Eventually they'll look much cooler than that, but they're kind of really just kickstarting themselves. And dead center in the back, you have a really, really large Franz Stoffel sword. This is my sword mother plant. It gives me child spikes all the time, and you can actually see one kind of coming out of the top up into the floating mass of doom up there that I need to take care of. But this tank's pretty simple. There used to be some, and there still kind of is, some Cypress Helperi in the back over here. It would clog up my overflow so often that I'm just kind of slowly getting rid of it. See some of those, I mean, look at some of the blue in those boys. Look at some of the blue in those boys. I'm going to challenge you to find me a guppy with that beautiful blue. And you could probably find him if you look really hard, but in Moscow's it's pretty tough, where you get that full blue body. You can get some blue grass guppies that have real cool tails and stuff, but not that body. We kind of come far out this way. There's a big field of crypts back here, and there's 3 different species. So, as we move, let's use a chair for some stability, but down here in some of the algae mess, these really tiny ones, these are Crypt Pygmaea. These real tall, thin-leaved green ones are Crypt Sri Lanka. And then in the back, there's a little bit more of just the kind of more generic Wendelii. I did have some Pokestamon stellata over here. It's been struggling. I'm trying to recover it. I think I'm actually going to stop doing a stem back there. I pulled out my Pokestamon Octopus because both me and the roommate were just tired of trimming it constantly and yanking out like 3-foot sections. I love the plant, but with CO2 it grows way too fast. So I might do like a Crinum Calamastratum or something back there, or maybe even just another sword. And then as we come forward, we've got some leftover Corkscrew Val, whole bunch of Ireo Vietnam, and then right here is the Crypt Florida Sunset. So we'll kind of pull out a little bit here. And sweep across the tank some. I mean, that's it. This tank's super simple. It's just a whole ton of guppies. There are a couple autosynclus in here. And then, you know, there's some snails. I've had so much trouble with mystery snails. There's one thing I want to keep in this tank, but I keep struggling with them. So I'm just going to talk to some of my mystery snail friends who are really good at them and figure out what I'm doing wrong. But overall, I just love this tank. It's simple. It's easy. What we're going to do is, instead of panning now, I'm going to kind of just give you a wide shot, a couple different, and we'll talk a little bit more about the guppies. Alright, so put a little bit of Sarah O'Nip tabs on the front of the glass. Absolutely love this stuff, so that we can see just kind of the horde at work here. You can see like the adults will be up front, and what'll happen is, as they nibble at the tabs, little particles of food will hit the water column, and then the babies kind of like cleanup crew getting all those teeny tiny particles. So you can see big swarms of babies kind of behind the adults. And some of the bigger juveniles will get a little gutsy and get in there, but for the most part, they're just letting the food get into the water column because there's just enough flow in here to help it move off the tab and flow around. There's still tons of adults up at the surface level who are like too lazy to figure out what's going on, but you can kind of just see, especially on that left-hand side, this swarm of fish that are in this tank. This has been just like a project of basically love. I know I've told this story, but I kind of want to tell it again in a short version. This tank means kind of two things to me. When I was growing up, my mom used to keep in her kitchen this massive collection of cobalt blue glass, most of which was from the Depression era, which is where that was really popular. And this blue in these guppies is the closest that I've seen in a freshwater fish, as far as like a live breeder is concerned, right? You can get that in like a turquoise rainbow too, but it's kind of the closest I can get to that glass. And so it's part of what really drew me to these guppies is that color, because every time I see them, it just reminds me of memories as a kid in my mom's kitchen. It might sound strange to like look at a fish and see that, but it's all about that color. And second, the way that I got these guppies, you know, I'd been chasing these fish for like 2 years. I found some guy on eBay. His line was not very strong, and when they got here, we had, I think, 60 fry or so that were all at least 2 weeks, according to him, although they didn't look more than a few days old, to be honest. And I lost all but like 4 by the end of the week. And, you know, I had them in a very safe tank. I had a tank that had been working for quite a long while, had lots of plants, didn't have a whole lot of flow in it, but had plenty of filtration, a couple sponges plus a hang-on back, and they just didn't survive. And eventually, I had females, I tried to spawn them, they would give fry, but those fry wouldn't last more than like a week. And after, I think, 2 drops of fry, the first of the 3 females I had passed. And then on the next drop of fry, both other females passed. And none of the fry ever survived. So I was left with my lone male, who I called Best Boy. You can go way back and find a video about that. But it was just a real kick in the teeth. Because it had been a fish I'd been chasing for a while. There's this forum for Washington called Washington Fish Box that every once in a while I'd look at. It's kind of old and not a lot of people use it, but there's this post that kind of came out of nowhere saying, I need a home for my blue guppies. And, you know, on a whim, I sent a message to the person that wrote it and ended up in a 45-minute phone call, I think the next day. A gal by the name of Leanne, which I know she's always watching. These are her babies. And, you know, lo and behold, she had been getting these fish directly from Mr. Roebuck years ago and had been buying new breeding trios every year and a half, 2 years to keep her genetics diversified. And here is this relatively large colony of these fish not very far from me that needed a home because, you know, she's getting older and couldn't properly take care of them anymore. And it's just one of those things where it's like the small coincidences of life are always so entertaining to me, where just sometimes the right things just happen. And now I get to enjoy them. And I very commonly sit kind of like this. The camera angle you guys have is pretty much what I consider the best view of this tank. And once I fix the far left-hand side, then, you know, there'd probably be a slightly different angle, lets you see everything, or just sitting farther back, because it's easy to see everything with the human eye. A camera can only do so well. But I really just love sitting kind of like this, about where you guys have your viewpoint, and just, you know, watching these fish swim or watching them eat. When I put my arm in the tank to work on it, whether it's working on plants or cleaning glass or what have you, there's just hordes of babies and adults around my arm, like nibbling at me and stuff. And it's always just such a hoot when you have this many fish, and little fish, mind you, all kind of like poking at you and curious. And, you know, guppies are not the brightest fish in the world, so you'll put a net out and they'll swim right into it. But it's just one of those things where it's such a subtle enjoyment, and yet I know that I would never get rid of all of these fish. I love the stories that I get from people who have gotten these fish, whether it's through me or some of the other people that are breeding them. Just the success stories, and I'll probably talk about this in a sec, but just like seeing people who like show me, whether that's on, you know, Instagram or an email, or some people who contact me on Facebook, and when I get a chance to talk, you know, seeing videos or pictures of them doing well just always makes me feel really good, because it's nice to know that these fish are getting more and more into the hobby again, into the hands of hobbyists who can breed them and take great care of them and spread them even further. So that's it, guys. I mean, this is number 12 right here. I think you waited long enough to enjoy some guppy time. I am very happy to take you guys with me on this journey through the tank and just watch these fantastic little fish do their thing, be guppies, have lots of babies, love food, and swim all over the place inside a Planet Tank. Well, there you go, guys. There is your look at the Guppy Mansion. This tank has been something that has been a couple of experiments, like this, you know, this big accumulation of Java fern on this cholla wood was a complete experiment. Plants have kind of come in and out of this tank, but the fish have never changed, and they won't ever change. At least I certainly hope not. You know, there's a story to these fish, and I know I've told it several times. We'll link to that, you know, just up in the corner if you want to see that story. But these fish are something special to me for a couple of reasons, and an opportunity to just sit and enjoy a colony in a tank this size, in this many numbers, where there's just colorful fish all over the place, and you get to see swarms and swarms and swarms of babies. And, you know, it's nothing too crazy. Are there things I could do to make this tank, like, even better? Sure. And I'm slowly working on some of those. As plants change, I get to experiment with things and choose new things that I just decide I want the look of. And some of the stuff's always going to stay the same. Like, I'm pretty much always going to have this massive thing of Java fern, all this giant sword in it that's behind me. And there will probably always be some crypts in this tank, although some of them that are in there now might move somewhere else because they're growing very, very tall. And, you know, I want the sword to be kind of the big, tall thing in the tank, and then, like, maybe some stems. I have some other stuff that's been in here over time that I just wasn't happy with, or didn't do as well, or was too much of a pain in the butt to keep up with. You know, those things like that. Like, I love poker snake and octopus, but every once in a while you get tired of trimming it like every 2 weeks and chunking out like 3-foot sections of that plant. So, you know, I changed it up in this tank. That being said, like, the thing that will always be the forefront and the goal of this tank is always to just provide a really nice environment for those Blue Hawaiian Moscow Guppies. You know, Luke Roebuck is gone, and there's not a lot of us who have this line, although it's growing more and more as, you know, some of you out there have picked these fish up from me, or maybe some other people that have this line. It's been kind of a thrill to get feedback and see people, you know, one of the best examples would be like Bob Kaler, the Chubby Guppy, some of the guys that like keep in really good contact with me. Just a little shout out to you guys who are like always giving me progress updates on how their guppies are doing, and, you know, just seeing colonies of this fish thrive in other people's tanks really puts a smile on my face. And I think in the end, for the person who I got this original line from, Leanne, who I know you're watching, so hi Leanne, but I think that would make her proud too, just because knowing that we're not going to let this line die, we're going to make sure that more and more people have it, that it survives, and that these beautiful fish get to be enjoyed by more than just, you know, one crazy YouTuber. So what I'd really love to know in the comments down below, just not necessarily anything about the guppies, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, when can we buy them? I'm trying to figure that out, I promise you. But more, what would you do for a plant? Let's say that one plant was going to go, and you got to pick one plant to go in this tank. What plant would you put in this tank for these guppies, and why? Is it something to pop the color of the males? Is it something to give the fry space to hide in? Maybe it's not a plant. Maybe you're like, you should be adding shrimp to this tank. I've had a heck of a time keeping mystery snails alive in this thing, so I don't know about shrimp, but I've tried because I really like mystery snails, and I think this tank should be good for them, but man, I've struggled so bad, so let me know. I would really love to know, like, what addition, and no, it's not going to be another fish. There's some autosynclus in here. There used to be some SAEs, but they got taken out because they'd gotten big enough to where they could become predatory, and had been a little predatory. Like, I actually watched a baby get taken out, and I was like, you are leaving with every other one of you right now. And I spent, between me and my roommate, I think we spent like 3 hours chasing 5 SAEs out of this tank because they're so flippin' fast in a water system this big. But I just really want to know for you guys, you know, what would you add? Not a fish. You know, maybe a snail or shrimp is fine, but I'd really love to know a plant or something that is just adds to the way to enjoy those guppies. That's what I want you to focus on. What to you is missing to make this guppy colony complete? I'd love to hear that down in the comments. Just, you know, I'm really fascinated by what a lot of you guys have to say in your comments. You're always like super interactive, and it's really a joy for me to read people's comments. And when I get questions or something that it warrants me taking time to respond, or more importantly, I get time to respond because I don't always get time. I try my best to do so, but I really love just reading what you guys have to say and your thoughts on things, or just for those of you who really appreciate the tips or getting to see things. It just always puts a smile on my face. Always makes my day just that little bit better, right? It makes that hard work grind that little bit easier. So with that being said, if you guys are finally happy I stopped like making you wait on these, maybe throw me a little like. If you think that my reason for saving the guppies for number 12 is dumb because you're a Cleveland Browns fan and your team lost to us in what could be said an unfortunate game, you know, you can hit dislike twice, Dustin, of Dustin's Fish Tanks. And your brownies took a shellacking. Poor Baker Mayfield. Sorry, I'm gonna rag on the Browns just because at time of filming this game just happened. So there's that. I'm gonna have to cut this. Yeah. Anyway. So with that being said, for those of you new, maybe maybe those of you who are like just waiting to buy guppies, pay attention to the community tab. When I can take time off to ship, I always announce it there. I'm going to announce it at least a month ahead of time, so you have plenty of time to prepare a tank, to be ready, to get in touch with me, those kind of things. I can't right now. I'm too busy at work, and I only have so much extra time between some other stuff in my real life, but I'm trying to find a way. Hopefully, I can figure out something that mutually works with maybe some other person to do the shipping that's really good at shipping fish. But I'm trying to figure it out. I promise. I promise I'm trying to make this easier on people. Anyway, if you're new and maybe this is your first time seeing this, I do a tank of the week every week, so it gives you an opportunity to see something new or different every week. Maybe it's an update to a tank, maybe it's some kind of lesson, or it's just a tank I haven't shown. It has a singular tank in detail before. That's going to happen every Wednesday, and then every Saturday there's going to be a video that's product related. It might be a product review in the sense of like how all the fluval stuff that we've been doing recently, which has been phenomenal and fun. Let me tell you, my experience with Pro Mode has been great. And this tank here, just for reference, it runs on a single Fluval 3.0, a 48-inch light. That's it. This is a 5-foot tank, left to right. And I mean, yeah, you get room for the overflow over here, so it's not really the full 5 feet, but this whole tank has been running and growing off of a single Fluval with 3 bubbles per second of CO2. So barely any CO2, only one light. It should show you like how good this light is for mostly simple plants. I mean, there are a few demanding plants in here, like there's Ireo Vietnams, those like strong light. To get the Java Fern to stay super healthy and lush like this, it does need relatively decent light. To get the red striations and the Franz Stoffel sort, it needs decent light. But it doesn't need like insane super performance green aqua level light, right? So keep that in mind. One light, 140 gallon tank, no problem. They're pretty dang good. But yeah, that's going to go on Saturdays or stuff like that, or Plants for Profit, which we'll get a few of those more coming here soon. Like fish room tours, special guests, any kind of thing like that. Those are all going to show up on Saturday. So that gives you an idea of what our schedule is. You get 2 videos a week, and sometimes there's some little bonuses, typically in the community tab, just because I only get so much time. We also have one live stream every month. It's a Q&A session, usually goes for like 2 hours. Typically the last Saturday of every month, but it depends on my schedule. It's one Saturday a month. There will always be a live stream, so look forward to those. It's an opportunity to come in, hang out, get questions answered, and if you can't make it in person, I always put up a thread in the community tab. Notice I keep mentioning the community tab. It's important. Where I will let you put your question down, and I always answer every question in the community tab, assuming they're appropriate, in the live stream, to make sure that if you can't make it, you can still participate, and it's still worth going back and watching. So, with that being said, thank you so much for watching, guys, and stay awesome.